The Depth Perception Perk. I was really surprised when Treyarch actually announced it on their roadmap that we are actually gaining this perk, which a lot of people initially thought will be either PhD Flopper or Double Tap by the leaks and the whole they have a Dark Ether jingle. They probably do that just to troll the leakers, and this is the actual product itself. So kudos to Treyarch for at least trying to, make a fool out of the leakers. As I find leakers are just not that they spoil the fun and makes it the hype drain down a lot. So anyway, so what is this perk all about? Of course, by reading its base version in tiers, it's essentially a awareness perk. Normally, you at first thought a lot of people think depth perception from BO4, like one of the most useless perks in the game. Heck, my muscle memory, my situation awareness is already depth perception built in. Why would I need to buy this perk? Well, this is completely different depth perception. Sure, it does bring two of the old version to upgrade, or the base version and the tier 2 from BO4, but they got rid of the whole seeing enemies' weaknesses on heavies and mini-boss. Now you get 4 additional stuff for depth perception, being the mini-map update, which sweeps a lot faster now. You also get way more loot of 20%, which is usually now you get 60 for the green salvage and now 12 for the blue salvage. But this also affects with the large supply salvage and outbreak, like the green one. Instead of 200, it's now 240. And as for the one in the Omega chopper, I didn't really test it as much because since they're so clustered together, it's really hard to pick one. But of course, you can able to just pick up by yourself at a range. And then tier 4, we have the armor damage increase, so you do more damage against penetrate enemy armor. And tier 5 is probably what made the biggest seller for depth perception, or I should say pretty much the last 3 tiers, as nearby chests, resources, and item drops are keylined through walls. And by item drops, as in means yellow stuff like intel, mission equipment, and all that. It's really a big deal, and it's really huge. I really need to try out depth perception in the other map to see if it actually makes a huge difference, which I think it will. Alright, that's enough talk about the perk in summary. Now I'll let you see it in action. The depth perception perk. Now, of course, since I did play BO4, I'm pretty much familiar with the whole seeing enemies through walls. But they also add additional other abilities as well, thanks to the Cold War system. Now, of course, I am playing on the holdout on the outbreak, and this is one scenario where it's actually pretty handy to have with depth perception. Since your minimap has been disabled by the Dark Ether interference, you can able to see enemies outline. So this is very handy to have, especially when you're having to deal with a Megaton in the field, and you have no clue where he is because you're too focusing on zombies in front of you and not the Megatons around the sides and the back. Another cool thing is of course, the tier 2, which is the indicator of a danger indicator that a zombie is behind you or somewhere close to you off screen. It does give you a little bit of a beep awareness, but it's so small it's hardly noticeable. After all, hearing does help me a little bit, but the arrows is nice for visual, especially for people who don't really have good hearing or just don't have really good headset. As for the tier 1, it's just a faster minimap, which is not really much practical, But it is very nice to keep in check with the enemies if they're coming behind you or not. But it's probably the tier 1, so it's expected to be a little bit weak. Tier 3 is probably the best trait of them all, and that is the able to pick up more salvage. Instead of collecting, you know, a green salvage, which is 50, and a high grade salvage, which are blue, which are worth 10. With depth perception, and by picking up a salvage, a green salvage will be worth 60, and the blue ones will be worth of 12. And you're probably thinking to yourself, that doesn't sound a lot, especially for a 20%. But believe me, it's worthwhile, because when you pick up 5 of these things, 5 blue high-grade salvage, instead of collecting a total of 50, you're actually going to get additional 60. So here are these blue one, for example, and you may see, I just picked this up, get 18, and then instead of the, usually 320, I just get now 330. It's a little bit more, but it's really nice. And what you saw before is the loot chest has been highly keylined, or basically highlighted in pink. So it is pretty nice to see if there's a loot chest in there or not. So for example, if you're trying to see what's inside the building, you can see the chest here, and it also does for salvage as well, with different colors as well. So it's pretty to look at, and it does make a lifesaver of saving you plenty of time, and saving for a matter of seconds without wasting your time inside a building and hoping to get a bigger chest. Of course, most of the time you do hear the chest, but you just don't know which level it is. Well, now you do. And it's a pretty big one too. As for the tier 4, you can able to... the hell? Okay, I've never seen this before. God. Ooh, that looks gruesome. But anyway, as for the tier 4, you get better armor penetration to the enemies. So you definitely deal a bit more damage to the enemy when it comes to their armor. Armor zombies, heavy zombies, manglers, panzers, disciples, and Tempest, and even the boss Legion itself. It does pair well with, I know Deadshot has this perk as well of one of the tiers, but Depth Perception gives you the biggest boost. And paired with those two perks with the Cavalry Lance Barrel, which also does more armor damage, you'll be melting the armor with no problem. But I still prefer the Task Force Barrel. As for tier 5, which I already mentioned before, but it's just all the other resources that you see, such as mission equipment, loot chests, will all be highlighted in different colors. Of course, depends on their rarity, but the loot chest will be always going to be in a pinkish color. So if you see a large chest with this color, you will definitely know that this is a genuine chest. Because if this chest does not have a nice little glow to it or an aura around it, then that means that it's got to be a decoy, being a mimic. So it is definitely a lifesaver to go through and saving your time. And as my final conclusion on the perk, it's definitely a very surprisingly welcome addition to the Cold War perk system. And I know a lot of people may seem to be very wouldn't disagree with me what I'm going to say, but I had to say this. according to their blog, they want to make a perk, at least another perk, that to not all about either damage or more health, which we kind of had enough of that already. And yes, I do wish we would love to have flopper or double tap. Mostly flopper for to be immune explosion, and double tap just increase rate of fire. The old double tap, not the 2.0. But that perception does do a little bit of damage just to armor enemies, but this is all about survivability. So it's really meant to be more of your basically using your smarts, as in using your salvage, placing your targets, and just be aware of your surrounding. Which I know it's really hard to process all, but it just really helps for people who are still new to the game, or just very comfortable with the iteration of the Cold War. So, overall, I say there's a really good perk, and I always like to see a perk to able to redeem themselves, and they just done just that. Now, they did try to do it with Tombstone, but unfortunately they still don't see the flaw with this perk, and that is that you lose a lot of perks now when you go down. 'Cause with 9 perks and you go down, that's a lot of perks you lose, and that's a lot of money you spent down the drain. If only they make it where, you know, like, able to keep all your perks by reviving yourself with using Tombstone, and you only lose Tombstone. That should be the biggest high risker here, because no one's ever gonna use Tombstone. But I am not talking about Tombstone in this video. That will be for another day. But for now, it's for depth perception, and the whole thing I'm trying to point out here is they at least made depth perception a lot more cool and more towards survivability, and basically kind of defeats the purpose of kind of a Tombstone a bit. You know, if you're really good at keeping your awareness and basically survive much longer, Tombstone is just practically useless. But hopefully they get improvement as well. But yeah, that's gotta be it for the depth perception perk. I hope you all find it to be useful, and also give Tombstone a try if you feel like if you want to have second thoughts of using depth perception. Give it a try, because you won't regret it, because it is going to be very handy. And this is also a good thing as well. You could also do the Fury Crystal event by finding all the crystals so easily, especially around the department store of mostly the motel building in the sanatorium. That one's probably the worst one to deal with, but with depth perception, it makes all your problems go away. So, it also made Outbreak pretty much up the fun time to 11, with the addition of the Tesla upgrade, the tank, and of course the biggest kicker here, the grapple gun. But yeah, that's it for my video on depth perception. Thank you for guys for watching, and I hope you find these tips to be useful. Until then, farewell, and have a wonderful day, everyone.